And then I'm going to share today's presentation, which is money and metrics. Um, and Christine, could you wave at me if you can see that presentation? Is that showing up on? Yes, lovely. Thank you very much. Okay. So, so we are back with day 3. And today the subject is money and metrics. Now, this is not about the financial management of your business. This is about financial projection as part of business planning. So we are firmly, resolutely in the field of business planning with this 5-day event. And today we're going to be looking at how projecting revenues can really help us with our business planning. So I'm going to explain that hopefully through this presentation. So welcome back. I was just making the point to the early arrivers that, and indeed for anybody who is watching this recording, if you're watching the recording of this session and you've started here on day 3, you could really do with going back and watching days 1 and 2, because today I'm going to assume some of the stuff that we did in the first 2 days, and we're going to be building on top of that. So I hope that makes sense. Now, I keep saying, you are the CEO of your business, and it's how I think about my business, actually. So I actually think about my business as having departments. I am the only person in my business, but I think about it having departments. And when I'm being strategic in my business, I'm clicking through the various departments and asking them to account for themselves. So I think it's really helpful to think of yourself as a CEO. And in fact, it's what we're going to be doing in Hothouse this year, because we are going to go through those operational departments this year, and we're going to take a deep look at each one of them as we pass through through the lens of interior design, business operations specifically. So I'll be sharing more about the forward calendar for Hothouse later on, but that's where we're headed. So this year, it's all about business management. It's not all about business management. There will be other stuff as well. So this week, we are improving the management quality of our business so that we can make better decisions. And when you have a plan like this, decision making becomes so much easier, because the plan sort of predetermines the route that you're taking. You have fewer decisions to make. You've made them in advance. You have a clearer direction because you have thought things through. And based on the work that we did, particularly on day 1, we've got stronger foundations in our business. So that's what this is all about. So by Friday, you are not going to have a perfect business plan, but you ought to have a sense of direction, and you ought to know what you're doing in order to firm that up and have something more substantial to work with. So you will have something that you can work from, and you're going to have something that you can revise, because today I'm going to talk to you about how we manage this plan through the year to some extent. There'll be more of that on Friday. But, several times there have been questions that have come up like, can my values change? Absolutely, your values can change. Your vision can change. The future destination, as you approach it, you might see other opportunities, or you might decide that, it isn't as attractive as you approach as it seemed from a distance. So we can absolutely revise and change these plans. They are living documents. That's all part of the great fun that of this business planning exercise. So from you, we need some thinking time. There is a little bit of homework. I keep giving you AI exercises, not so much today. Today, I think, is more straightforward. And I would expect you to have imperfect answers. So I know as interior designers and architects, we've got some architects here, we're always, keen on perfection, but it's absolutely fine through this process not to have everything completely figured out, but it's great to have some direction. So it's a 5-day program. We started on Monday with vision and values. Yesterday we did business model. Today we're doing money and metrics. Tomorrow we're going to take the work we've done today and show you how you can generate your marketing plan basically now from all the work that we've done. So that stuttering experience you have of not being sure what to do when it comes to marketing, actually the work that we've already done here is going to answer all of those questions. So we're going to find ourselves in a so much stronger position with regard to marketing tomorrow. And then on Friday, we're going to round the whole thing up. We're going to pull everything together and just sort of get this theory all in one place so that you can have confidence in how you're going to use it. Now, so I spoke to you about values, and I do want to come back to this because I do think they're the most important thing that we've spoken about this week, because where I see them adopted meaningfully, I see strength in business operations. So your values are very important. And the other thing I've been encouraging you to do is have a vision, have a vision for your business and have bold dreams. So a blue sky thinking, sky's the limit, unrestricted. Where do you want this thing to go? So I'm encouraging you to think big where that is concerned. However, it's really important that the values and the vision synchronize. So I had some fun with ChatGPT trying to make the point with values that we absolutely have to have our values and our vision together. So if the vision is world domination, if your vision is to sit astride a multinational empire, what would your values look like? So I had a little bit of fun with GPT-5, and we came up with a reality check. So if you want world domination, then the kinds of values I would expect to see would be things like scale over balance. So that means hell for leather, fast as you can, big as you can get, as hard as you can go. Your work is your identity. There's not much else. That's what you focus on, and that is what you do. You are ambitious and you make no apology for it. You don't hide it. It is a driving force in your life. You see visibility as a duty. So you are constantly aware that you are being watched and you are performing accordingly. You see your taste is authoritative. So you see yourself as being somebody with a meaningful message in terms of taste. You want control of the narrative. You are thinking about legacy. So you have big plans, big dreams, and you want to make a significant, lasting mark. You delegate without any guilt, and you endure. You would rather endure than look for the comfortable way out. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is you have to level up your values to match your ambition. So if you have a massive vision, we expect to see that coming through in your values. So if your values are much more nurturing, much more about self-care, much more about community, more on that side of things, then perhaps your vision is not appropriate to be world domination. So we just need to make sure that we're sort of pegging those so that they're sitting at a similar level. If you want to be or to emulate the success of Sophie Patterson or Kelly Wurstler or Amber Lewis or Sean Symington or whoever it is, you're going to have to work really, really hard. And that's the bottom line. Okay, so values and vision. Yesterday we did business model. And what we took from business model was that there are many different ways of being an interior designer. There isn't a playbook. You can choose to operate it with different clients in very different ways, depending on your local situation. So the best place to start when you're thinking about how you operate your business is to think about the clients that you're going to be serving. So yesterday we spoke about their pain points or their aspirations, We spoke about the nature of the clients that you're going to be working with, and we spoke about ensuring that the services that you choose to offer them have been created bespoke for their anticipated needs. So yesterday we ended up with, theoretically, a suite of services, the suite of services that are best suited to the clients in the area that you are going to be operational. So that was the outcome from yesterday. So today we're talking about money and metrics, and we're going to be looking across 6 different subjects. I'm going to start off with revenue projection. This is the main thrust of today's presentation, is projecting our revenues and using those projections to help us plan what we do in our business. I'm going to talk about the transition that a business makes as it matures from being quite concerned with building client trust and appearing to be potentially risky to a client when a business isn't very well established, but how you can increase, you can turn up the sophistication of your business as time passes, as you begin to develop that trust in the market. So we're looking at the weaving of services, starting with those that represent the lowest risk to the client, but over time, as your trust gathers, you can move into services that require the client to have greater faith in you before they will commission them. We're going to look at the long-term plan versus an annual plan. I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite concepts, another way that I work, which is what I call boss and worker mode. And this comes down to how you switch between being strategic and thinking about your business strategically and actually just getting on with the day-to-day work. So that's that. I'm going to talk very briefly to you about metrics, and we're also going to touch very briefly on money mindset, and there will be time for a Q&A. So, Amanda, I see you on my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're actually able to read the numbers on that presentation? You can see them. Okay, brilliant. Because I will be zooming in on some of these, but I'd like to assume that you can see the overall view. So this is a very simple spreadsheet. I've put the PDF copy of this in Hothouse. So it's under the Files tab in Hothouse if you want to get your own copy of it. It's a 2-page, I've got a second sheet coming up. And this is the very simple way that we begin to project how our business is going to unfold over time, how we want it to unfold over time. So I've put this across a 5-year timeline. It doesn't have to be that much, but we're shooting for high revenues. And so I've decided to build up to that over 5 years. So I've got the years at the top of the columns, and down the left-hand side, I've got the different revenue streams that this business, this made-up business, is going to launch with and then ultimately transition to. So these services, and we'll have a look at a slightly larger copy of this in a minute, this is what I call our trust ladder. So we're recognizing that before we have social proof, before we have testimonials, before we have a portfolio, before anybody really knows us, it can be hard to persuade people to invest a great deal with us up front. So it's easier to launch your business with lower level, entry level products, for example, like a 2-hour consultancy. And it's easier to sell something like that than it is to sell a large design package. So we can be intentional, we can be strategic about having a launch strategy that is not our long-term strategy. So here is our trust ladder. And as we progress, we see that, at the low risk end, there's a consultancy. I think I priced that at £325. That's potentially an amount of money that a client might gamble if they like what they see, but there isn't much evidence yet or proof of satisfaction. Then we move into blocks of hours. Again, this is an easier sell than a full design service. And I said yesterday that some of the clients I have who work in parts of the country where professional fees are slightly resisted, it can be easier to sell in blocks of time. It's perhaps not quite as satisfactory, but I know designers who are regularly doing full design service, with all of the revenues that you would expect that to generate, but they're selling them in blocks of time. And that is just what they have to do in order to make the sale. So as we move through to high risk, in this made up business, we're going initially with consultancies, then blocks of hours, then we're hoping to seduce some small full service design, then medium full service design, and then ultimately we're looking to pick up some large projects. So this is the transition of our business, and our revenues are going to weave from one end to the other end, as you'll see in a minute. So in 2026, which is our first year, we're only hoping to sell the very low risk items because we are a new business. So we're only looking to sell consultancies and we're looking to sell blocks of hours. And because we're starting from zero in this model, we're not overburdening ourselves with an expectation of a high level of sales, because quite frankly, if you're starting from nothing, you've got an awful lot of work to do probably before you bring those first sales in. 2027, we hope to sell our first small design project. We'll sell a couple of those in 28. 29, we're going to be moving into medium-sized projects. And then ultimately in 30, we hope to be sophisticated enough. We hope to have enough trust and excitement about our services that we're now moving into those large design projects. So we are scheduling this as if it's for real, as if it's happening. And these baby blue blocks that are vacant and then a bit less vacant and so on, this is the effect of clients' resistance diminishing over time. Or I could put that the other way and say, as this gets smaller, it's because client trust is growing. Now, when you are running the business that is in the business of growing trust, you don't see it happening. So you're sitting thinking nothing is happening and, maybe questioning what you're doing. But in fact, as long as you're active, this trust is growing in the background. You just don't necessarily see the people who are starting to show an interest. Early stage interest doesn't necessarily show up. So these are our blocks of reducing fear or increasing trust as we transition through. So year one, our emphasis is low risk, things that are easy to sell. And across the span of the plan, which, as I say, I've done 5 years, you could do 2 years or 3 years or whatever, works for you. But as we move to year 5, our clients now trust us and we're not having any difficulty in shifting these higher level products. In fact, it is our strategy to transition our business to these higher level products. So this isn't a brilliant chart, but I thought I'd put it in just in case. It shows a different colored line for the different colored product, and it shows how the low level, inexpensive stuff is providing some revenue in the early stages of our business, but we're phasing that out at the same time that we're blending in the stuff that is going to be more meaningful, it's going to be more fulfilling, more interesting for you, and is going to have larger revenues associated with it. So year 5 is your dream business. So it's up to you to decide what those revenue streams are over in the left-hand column and how much you would aspire to generate from those revenue streams in 5 years' time. So we're creating, we're daydreaming about a perfect 5-year-old business 5 years from now. What would that look like? And this is where we can, we want to give ourselves some stretch goals. The 4 years that precede that is the staged plan to get there. So we are demonstrating to ourselves what we need to achieve in the 4 years before our dream year in order to have the dream year manifest. It's not manifesting, it's an intentional, strategic, hard work thing that you're setting yourself up to do. But that is your staged plan to get there. Now, so the next thing to do is thoroughly stress test the logic of this plan. And that's going to involve things like looking at how many different services you say you're going to sell in a year, and actually figuring out if it's physically possible for you to be in so many places doing so many things. So thinking about how much time is associated with each service and how many of those services you're going to sell, and whether your available time, not forgetting the fact that you need to have holidays and you have to do business admin and all that kind of stuff. We need to figure out, we need to persuade ourselves and satisfy ourselves that this is a possible world. Once we've done that, we can park our concerns about year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, because we've thought about them, we've got a plan for them, but our immediate concern is just making sure we deliver year 1. Okay, so at this stage, we put it in a box. It's not locked box. It's a box that we regularly go in and out of, but it goes into a box, and we busy ourselves with sorting out a 1-year plan. At this stage, I'm going to shift from a 1-year plan and figure out how I've set myself the target of selling 15 consultancies and 2 blocks of 10 hours. How am I going to manage that in a year? What will that look like? So then we get on to planning our year. Now, this is a little bit smaller. I'll talk you through it. And again, it's the second sheet of the PDF that I put into Hothouse. So this is a 1-year plan. It's the whole of 2026. It's got the same products, the same services in the left-hand column. It's got the price of each one of them, which I plucked out the air based on the kinds of prices that I see. And it's got the projected sales for this year. So this year, we're only worried about the 15 consultancies and the 2 blocks of 10 hours. Now, I've marked our months. January, February, March is in a box. That's Q1. April, May, June is in a box. That's Q2, and so on. So we've got 4 quarters, and I've projected the sales per month that are going to become my targets for the year. I've let myself off very lightly in Q1. I'm only hoping to sell 1 consultancy, partly because it's going to feel so damn good if I hit that target. If I give myself a target and I miss it, I will feel despondent. But if I give myself a target and I hit it, I'm going to feel absolutely overjoyed, even if it's just selling 1 consultancy. Furthermore, if we start a business in January, chances are, it's actually going to be quite hard to get everything up and running to the extent that we could sell a consultancy by March. There's an awful lot to do. So then I start building up because, we're starting to get the wheel spinning. I would expect, actually, it takes about 6 months for people to begin to notice you and to feel like there's anything, that the lights are on in your business. But I'm also being thoughtful about the fact that everything might go to sleep in August. So I'm not burdening myself with sales in August. And similarly, I'm not burdening myself with sales in December because it's a crazy month, you know? So there are months of the year where people are more open to, you know, thinking about their home and wanting to move or wanting to refresh or whatever. And then there are times of the year when they tend to withdraw a little bit. So we're building that in as well. And in this way, we have a 1 year plan. Tomorrow, we're going to look at marketing and we will see how this 1 year plan directs our marketing. So tomorrow, when we look at marketing, all we're going to do is we're going to take the business model that we've already thought about. We're going to take the revenue projections that we've made as part of our long-term planning, and we're going to use those two sources of data to tell us what our marketing should be. So instead of sitting, worrying, wondering what we should be doing next in marketing, we've actually got direction coming from our plan. Our plan is helping to guide us. Now, I wanted to talk to you about another favorite theory that I have. And this is my theory that I call boss and worker mode. So I put myself into two states, one at a time. Sometimes I think of myself as the boss, and I do all the boss things. And the boss things include detailing exactly what needs to be done in the business. So the boss makes the to-do list, the boss decides how the calendar runs, the boss does all the strategy, and the boss makes all of the decisions. And the boss, the output from the boss is schedules and specifications. It's lists of things to be done with all of the information that you need in terms of how to do them is included within that material. Boss Julia hands the stuff over to worker Julia, and then worker Julia just follows the instructions, rarely has to make any decisions, and just gets on with the work. And in that way, when you've planned really well and you've resolved the detail of your plan, the reward that you reap is the nice, quiet process of not having to make decisions, of not having to think too hard, but of having your work already decided for you. And all you do is follow the instructions that your alter ego has created for you when they were being strategic. So I like that way of thinking. So boss Julia, worker Julia cracks on with the to-do list and gets it all done according to what the revenue projections tell her she needs to sell and what the marketing plan tells her she needs to do in order to sell those services. She just cracks on with all that stuff. And of course, she services the clients as well while she's at it. And boss Julia occasionally pops up and checks. And that would be monthly, potentially, an end of month wash up. How has it gone? Did I make that sale? Why not? How can I catch up? And then quarterly as well. Now, monthly tends to be just how did the month go? How did this month go? Have I achieved what I needed to achieve this month? What do I need to do next month? That's basically the monthly thing. The quarterly thing refers back to the master plan. So every quarter, boss Julia comes back and she thinks about what's been achieved in the quarter, but she benchmarks it to the master plan and makes sure that the quarter is still on track. Maybe you've outperformed, maybe things are turning out better than you expected and you want to increase some of your projections, or perhaps there are some fundamental issues in the economy and you realize that you're going to have to rework some of your projections, or however it works out. But quarterly, we benchmark and we make sure that single annual plan that we have is still tied to the bigger vision that we have for our business. So that's our quarterly business. Now, I think a lot of you know that, and I want to talk about measurement and metrics now. A lot of you know that I write a weekly newsletter. And for the last year, I've written that every week. And every week, I have measured my business and I've put the statistics of my business into my newsletter. So every week, I go back and I look at this dashboard that I have that is designed by me for me to specifically drive my focus into the aspects of business performance that my business most needs. So this is not, everybody uses the same thing. This is actually designed thoughtfully to make sure that it's bringing to my attention the things that I know I should be doing for my business. And I have a sort of traffic light system with it. This one looks a bit slim because we're only in week 2 of the year. And so I've only got 2 weeks of data. But I can see that some things are growing, they're green. And I can see that, as is always the case, I'm being negligent where LinkedIn is concerned because that's showing up red. And it works because it does keep forcing me back into LinkedIn in a way that I think I would probably forget or neglect to do if I wasn't having to account for myself every week. So I do find this very useful. And if you if you think you can bear it, this kind of consistent attention really produces results. It really works. So, measurements and metrics of your business, they force you to pay attention, and that really works when you're, trying to roll out a plan. So now in my dashboard that I measure every week, I've got some tangible things, how many Instagram followers do I have? How many discovery calls did I make? That is knowable. But I've also got some things that are more abstract. And they include, I don't have money mindset, actually, I probably should have, but I don't have money mindset. But I do weekly measure my confidence. I measure how organized I am. And I've got a new one, which is how ready I am to receive the good things that come from hard work in business. That's another story. So how I measure these intangibles, for example, with confidence, is I think of confidence as being measurable on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is rock bottom, couldn't feel worse, and 10 is bulletproof self-belief. The kind of value that you have to have if you're going to go for world domination. So between 0 and 10, you think about how you're feeling in the moment. And it has always been my position that to run your own business, to show up and to be able to put on a good show for it, probably the baseline should be a 7. So we should all be tracking at least a 7 out of 10 in confidence in order to be able to support our business. Now, since I started measuring my confidence, it was 7-ish when I started, sometimes a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher. It is now consistently, when I think about it, I put it at 8.5. And the reason that it's grown is because I'm measuring it and because I'm being because I look at it and I think, how can I make myself more confident? Usually the answer is doing something a bit scary like this. And so when I do it and it isn't a disaster, and sometimes it's a success, that really gives me a boost in confidence. So you can, if you measure it, if you bring attention to it, you're putting yourself in a good position to make it better. So money mindset, I think I have yet to meet the interior designer who doesn't need to put a little bit of attention towards money mindset. So this could be something that could go into your dashboard to measure as frequently as you can bear. And you can think about, how you performed last week. It's like a journaling thing, maybe. Did any events happen last week where you were apologetic, or where you were, nervous, or where you sort of fumbled when it came to issues of money? And we think about them, we dissect them, and we think about how we could have done better. And in that way, we can improve our situations, so that by the time we're confronted with those high net worth clients, or those ultra high net worth clients, and some of the numbers are very, very big, we're able to say those numbers as if they're inconsequential, with respect, but not the main issue of the project. The main issue of the project is client satisfaction. So that's how we measure our intangibles. They are included on the dashboard, which enables us to bring focus in our business to the aspects of business performance that our business most needs. So that is the dashboard and the metric situation. So today, we have talked about revenue projection, which is really quite simple. We've done it over a longer term plan to give us goals and guidelines on how we're going to drive our business. So we'll come back to more of that tomorrow on marketing. We've looked at transitioning your business from products that represent a lower risk to clients with a new designer, and moving with time to areas of practice that involve greater sophistication. We've looked at the long-term plan and seen how, with a good long-term plan that bears scrutiny, that can be stress tested and still works, we can set aside the back end of that plan and we can just think about the coming year. But we can do it in the knowledge that we've got all these goodies up ahead because we've planned it in. I've spoken to you about boss and worker mode, so that you think actively about being the one who's in charge, make all of the instructions based on the planning and the strategy that we've done, and then you enjoy the peace and tranquility of simply rolling out the plan as decided by your alter ego. I've explained how measuring in metrics certainly has been totally transformative for my business. It's made an incredible change in my business over the last year that I've been doing it, which is why I'm going to do it this year every week again. And we've lightly touched on money mindset, and I've suggested to you that most interior designers benefit from some work in this area, and that, thinking about it weekly is going to help you to develop a more confident approach to financial matters. So we're past the halfway mark. Tomorrow we're coming back. We're doing marketing and visibility. And then on Friday, we are going to draw from all of our 4 days to produce a theory of business planning that I hope will be just obvious, really, at the point that we come to pull it together, that will give you guidance on how you can address your business in the coming year. So there we are. That is part 3. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to open the floor and ask if anybody would like to make any comments or has any questions about today's presentation. Timna, hello.
Hi, Julia. Hello. Thanks so much for today. So much to think about. My brain's kind of jumping around all over the place. You talked about stress testing the logic of the plan. And I guess you can know for sure if you've made your plan for the year, and you decide to do, some smaller consultations to begin, however you plan it out, you can know that you've got the time and the capacity to do it. But if you don't get the work in, you can't. You can do your marketing, you can do all the rest of the work around it, but if you don't get the work in, is the idea that you're just adapting it as you go along.
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So, if you've projected in Q1, you'll do a sale that you miss, that sale then gets lumped into Q2. If you're going to hit your target by the end of the year, you're going to have to, you're going to have extra work to do in Q2 to try to make up that
but if
loss.
your capacity, if you've planned your
Yeah, yeah,
capacity
no,
around your
yeah, yeah,
availability,
yeah,
then you
yeah.
then it's actually the target that has to change.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. That is possible.
yeah.
That's a possible change that you would have to make
You
as
obviously
well.
don't want to be doing that, but I guess otherwise you're overburdening yourself if you've kind of structured it to your own sort of availability and capacity
Yes, yes.
and the
And
studio capacity.
yeah, I mean, we can't know, obviously, when a client is going to approach. That's unknowable. It's speculation. Um, and so I would say when you're making these plans, do them. I would be really ambitious and give yourself stretch goals for year five. But when you're making your immediate plan, where you can, try to keep it within the realms of reality.
Yeah.
It's not a fantasy. It has to look plausible. Otherwise, you're going to disappoint yourself and you're going to end up depressed. So yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Any other questions today? Tom, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much for today. So my question is around the current climate.
Ah,
So it's quite tough at the moment. I've been going on my own for nearly 9 years now, so got a fair amount of experience, and it's quite a challenging time. So what would be your advice about I don't really do many consultations these days. I'm more that sort of like smaller and medium type um, client, I guess, really. But they're not so forthcoming at the moment because of lots of reasons. So, what would be your advice in terms of, sort of not ensuring the work because no one can guarantee that, but sort of maybe adapting to the current situation we find ourselves in,
would
I
you
guess, really.
would you say that your business has evolved over time? Do you think you've been operating for 9 years? Have you sort of significantly overhauled your business every few years to rethink how you do it?
Probably not, if I'm honest with you. You kind of, you know, early days, you're just pleased to get, you're sort of pleased to get work in, and you've got lots of intentions, and
Yeah,
then you grow, and then it's exciting, and the money's coming in, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And processes are definitely refined, ways of
yeah,
workings are refined, contracts are refined, billings refined, things are definitely refined. I don't know if I've overhauled though,
yeah.
if
I
I'm
mean,
honest with you.
I'm not looking to point the finger back at you because obviously I hear from lots of people about the current climate. So, absolutely. But I wonder if, on the one hand, one thing you could be doing is reconsidering the way that you run your business, particularly where marketing is concerned. Um, are you using AI? Is it a deeply integrated part of your daily process?
No, it's not. I am using it, and I'm actually quite enjoying it. I'm finding it quite useful, which is good. And it's on my list that I need to
Yeah,
get more
yeah,
integrated. And my whole mantra this year is about you're either earning or you're learning, because there's so much to learn at the
yeah,
moment. So I want to
yeah.
make sure that if I'm not earning this year, I am being productive in all the other hours and upskilling as much as I can. And refining practices, and integrating AI in more, etc. So
Yeah.
definitely this year is about doing that as well. But obviously you've got to deliver some revenue at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I
so
mean, so I would say so it's twofold. First of all, scrutinize your operations, not not the way you handle clients. I'm sure you do that beautifully, but I'm thinking more about how you position yourself in the market, how you promote your services, and maybe some shortcuts that you could bring into your business that you haven't quite
Yeah.
got to
And
grips with yet.
actually, I am doing that, which is good. So that's good to hear. And I adapted some of those last year, more about not positioning, but where's the opportunity and really looking for that. And
Yes.
yeah, last year was quite successful in that. So I'm doing that. It's just you're sort of doing all of that, and you're also the climate's not brilliant, so you're sort of working double as hard at the moment. But
Yeah.
I guess that's it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. You can only look to yourself to be the best that you can be. You can try to level up your business so that if there is a bit of business around, your business gets it, so that you are, the best option in this
Mm,
bit of a scrabble. And I think you're absolutely right. Maybe look at upskilling in some certain aspects, or but with a bad climate and clients worried about, I don't know, tax changes or whatever it is that's
mm.
holding them. I'm sorry, I can't think of a magic.
No, that's all right. Because actually, I'm
Uh,
aware I'm taking a lot of time here, so sorry.
no,
But
no.
actually, I realised that last year is clients weren't necessarily buying the full services, and I was doing quite a lot of concepts. So they would take that and then they would run with it, or you'd be brought in to deliver certain aspects of it, which was quite successful as well. So I suppose that's an example of changing the offer that I was providing.
Yeah.
And that, I got quite a few of them. So, not to be
I
despondent at that,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. No, I do think there's a job to do to look forward 5 years and think about the role that AI will have in interior design services in 5 years' time. And if
Mm,
you are upskilling, then turning your attention to making yourself a designer who is going to thrive against AI competition. And what does that mean? So I
mm,
think that's going to be like a different way of being an interior designer again. And now is the time to be, if you've got some time and you want to do some upskilling, now is the time to be thinking about the future competition and who you need to be the thing that humans choose to work with when,
yeah.
when there is actually, reasonable competition that's now digital.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
no
Thank you.
problem. Christine.
Hello, Julia. Hi everyone. I just the sort of next step in following on, I think, from what Timna was asking, the other sort of logical next step in testing the logic of the projection and thinking about your resources is is outsourcing and taking on assistance. And I just wondered if you have any um, insights or tips that then you may have already written blogs and stuff on this subject, but I think that's sort of the tipping point that I certainly find myself on and off, picking up on Tom's point about the climate as well.
Yeah.
It feels that sort of, that juggling between pipeline at the minute, and therefore having the financial confidence to say to somebody, I need your services, can you block time? So yeah, that's just a situation I'm interested to know your wisdom
Yeah.
on.
I think it's terrible because we start talking about a tough climate and we become part of the noise that there's a tough climate, and we sort of participate in making that tough climate a real thing. Um, However, now is not the time to hire somebody, obviously. But I don't think there's a magic bullet to this question either, because I see designers maybe getting a bit of ad hoc help with things like graphic design or whatever, using platforms like Fiverr. where you can, someone will charge you a rate to produce a document, or, so you can get some admin help that way. I've got lots of clients who use virtual assistants, and, buy in at about £25 an hour seems to be the going rate for a virtual assistant, to give meaningful help in your business, actually. And then I get into conversations about things like rate cards. So for your business, so how much, when you're buying in at this price, how much are you selling out to at the client, and how much do you reveal to the client about who's actually doing the work in the business? So that's a whole other topic of conversation. But I mean, I think the balance is finding the help when you need it. Because if you don't have it reserved in your business in the form of an employee, you're stuck having to try and find that help at short notice when a job comes and you need the help.
Yeah.
I have not got a good answer for that question, other than networking really well. I mean, I know a number of people recently who've hired freelance help through putting adverts on their Instagram, because their Instagram is quite busy, there's an awful lot going, and they've actually sort of looked through CVs or applications as a result of advertising that they're hiring on Instagram for freelance help. I can't think of a magic bullet, though. There isn't a tap that you can just turn on and off when you need it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Does anybody else have a solution? Oh, we've got some solutions. Fantastic.
Sorry, mine's a very quick question, but it's not a solution. It's about Fiverr. So along with your question, has anybody had luck with Fiverr? Because I've found it like
I know people who have.
extracting teeth.
Okay, right. Down
Sorry,
my
that's my
left-hand
question.
side, so I saw Amanda and Serpa, I think. Serpa, have you got a happy story for us? Have you got some advice?
Well, I'm not sure if it's advice, but I'm personally in a situation that I did the residential interior designer course at KLC that graduated last summer, and then now I'm thinking whether to start my own business or what to do, and I have a few ideas, but I think what I would actually need is to have some guidance of a more mature designer for some time. And I think the ideal way for me would be to do some freelance work where and my rate wouldn't be enormous, because I understand that I don't have the experience of the more mature designer, but then it would be a sort of benefiting both of us. So I would get the experience, and then the company would get would need to pay for so much. So I think that's yes. So even there are lots of new graduate that you could advertise.
Yeah. Now, imagine you're successful and you get hooked up with somebody. I guess you would be a good connection to other students who might be in a similar situation. Perhaps other people who might feel the same way.
My whole cohort, we have a WhatsApp group, and
yeah.
So
Amanda, were you going to say something similar?
Yes, I was just going to say, if I'm sort of, use Hothouse, because, there's a whole host of people, as you say, with different levels of experience and, looking for different opportunities. And I think a lot of people, like, sorry, the previous lady, I didn't catch your name, and myself, who would very much be looking to help somebody in a freelance capacity, maybe on a short-term project, looking to get a bit more professional experience. So I would just say, to put something out on Hothouse and potentially see what comes back.
Super. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm kind of new here, so this is all great.
Excellent. Any other questions? We've got about 4 minutes left, but are we all done for the day? Okay, so we're going to be back again tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning, day 4, and tomorrow we're going to look at, personally, I think it's magic, actually, how what we've done in days 1, 2, and 3 is going to inform the whole marketing piece. And the marketing piece is the bit that I hear so many people saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, I don't know who I'm speaking to, I don't know where to say it. And yet all of that is hidden in this work that we've already done, or not even hidden, it's just sitting there in the work that we've already done. So tomorrow we're going to look at that. And then on Friday, there's going to be a recap. And we're just going to sort of take an overview of the whole thing, pull it all together, and we'll have our planning strategy. And hopefully you'll have made some progress on getting your plans together. So hope to see some of you tomorrow. And I'm going to cook this now, and I will put the recording onto YouTube and into the Hothouse group. Okay, so see you tomorrow.
Thanks,
Thanks a
Julia.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.